On the road to Macstock with Jill McKinley of Start with Small Steps. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by the new MacVoices Discord, available to all of our MacVoices patrons. Sign up and join in the conversation in your new favorite online group at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it's that time of year when you're seeing a lot of shows on the MacVoices feed that say Road to Macstock. That's because we're on the road to Macstock, talking to all the speakers that are going to be there, or at least everybody we can get on their schedules with, about what they're going to be talking about and why you should pay attention. So what we're talking about is Macstock in Crystal Lake, Illinois, in July. We're going to have a great time. I know I'm looking forward to it. I know our next presenter is looking forward to it because now she is a second-time presenter. Jill McKinley is here. Jill, it's great to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you too. I've always enjoyed seeing you and hearing your podcast and your YouTube channel. It's great to talk in person-ish.
Well, it is. It is. And last year you knocked them dead as a first-time presenter. As I recall, you used a stick to do it.
I did use a stick because it's a presentation of using your sticks to learn anything, learning software. And so that was my prop for that. And
I'm the first one to admit that when you came out with the stick, I was a little concerned. It's like, okay, how is this going to go? And it worked so well. It was wonderful.
Oh, great.
So what are you doing this year? I mean, how do you follow the stick?
Well, you cannot follow the stick. I've just learned that. But this year I'm talking about Notion database. It is about storing and managing your data in a way that you can get it back out and use it for different things. And so I'm going to talk about that. But I think that you could also walk away from this conference thinking about how you might organize your data, even if you don't pick this product.
Okay, so let's dive deep here just a little bit. And again, we don't want you to give the presentation. That's not the point.
First, okay, I won't.
Yeah. Okay, so the Notion database. Now, are we talking about Notion, the service that has supported MacVoices and is an online kind of thing? Is that the Notion database we're talking about?
That is the same Notion, yeah. And to call it a database, I think sometimes is unfair. Sometimes I have trouble saying, well, it's a database, but it's a page, but it's a notebook. And that is exactly that product. I love that product. My whole life is in it now.
Well, that's why I asked, because when you said Notion database, I'm thinking about the Notion that I know, and I don't think of it as a database. What else? I guess it's a project management or productivity system. Put your own label on it, but it's extremely powerful.
Yeah, it can do everything, and that's why over the course of the year, I have moved everything into it. And I have always loved productivity applications, and so I had Todoist, and I had Fantastic. I had a bunch of them. And now once you start getting up into subscriptions, which is now the latest thing, you start thinking, is there a way that I can not pay as many subscriptions? Or is there a way too that I can combine all my data so I can use it better? If I'm sitting there thinking tonight, I need to do some tasks. I have my podcasts, I have my yard tasks, I have my house tasks. If they're in 3 different applications, then I may not know what I should do on a Saturday. Is the weather nice and I should go outside and do my yard tasks? Or do I really need to get caught up on my podcasting because I'm going to be at a conference in a couple of weeks? With it all being in the same tool, now I can look across all my tasks, either filter them by area or just see what's the most pressing thing I have to do right now.
So one of the places I found that productivity systems break down is it's great once the information's in there, but A, I've got to get the information in, and B, I have to then maintain it. I have to maintain getting things in. I have to maintain checking things off that I've done. Do you find that Notion eases that process a bit?
I believe that getting it in has been very valuable to me. In fact, while I was preparing for my own talk, I watched a fellow create a system where he was able to record notes on his phone. It dumped that file into a file on OneDrive, I believe. Notion took that file, transcribed it, and put it in Notion. As integrations and this kind of world we live in now with AI and integrations and all this data sharing, it is getting easier and easier to get things into the system. For example, I replaced Pocket which is a read later application because of the subscriptions. I put it all in Notion now. And not only does it now put a timestamp on it, it copies the article into Notion, and now it's searchable. So if I'm doing a podcast about bird nests and I know I saved an article that was great about it, I can search and find it there. So clipping tools, other types of methods of getting data into Notion is getting better and better. And so it's coming along, but you're right. If you don't manage it and you don't maintain it, it gets unwieldy.
And look, that's not a slam on Notion. That's any of the systems that are out there.
Yeah. But I think Notion makes it as easy as humanly possible.
Well, you mentioned clipping tools, and that's something that I was not familiar with in Notion, at least not for the things that I would want to do with it. Because it is extremely powerful. Like you said, with Pocket, I happen to use Instapaper. Mm-hmm. That I have a link in my menu bar of Safari, right. And so if I'm in an article and want to save it or archive it or whatever, I click that and I get a little dialogue that says done, and it's there. And so that takes away that friction. And I'm delighted to hear, in fact, now already, folks, she's taking up my time. I got to go learn this before this session. But that's great to know that kind of thing is available.
Right. Well, not only that, but think about, I only know Pocket, so I haven't looked at Instapaper in a really long time, but I have articles, and I could tag the articles and say that this is a nature article, and this is a travel article, and this is a recipe. I can do that in Notion as well. So I can, put it in a category. So when I want to look at my recipes, I have a whole list of the recipes I found online with the clipping tool. But what if I want to do more with it? I want to actually schedule reading time, or I want to be able to flag and remind myself to read this. Notion has so many more capabilities than just a read later type of application. I can build my own system to do whatever I want to do instead of just leaving things in this giant pile of articles to be read later.
Okay. So how about from the iPhone? Are you able to use Notion from the iPhone?
Yeah, and that's one of my criteria when I was trying to pick a new application. I was using OneNote with Office and my great divorce with Microsoft moving over towards Mac. One of my requirements was something I could do on everything. And Notion can be used on my Windows machine, my Mac, my iPhone, my iPad. It's everywhere. And so that's the other part that was important to me, is that all my data is everywhere I want it to be. And I can create different views of it. So you mentioned maintaining your list. So I come up with a checklist of all the yard tasks I have to do outside. I can create a view for my iPhone that is just the task and a checkbox. No deep dive data into how to dig up weeds in my backyard. All that is filtered out. So I can just sit there in my backyard going check, 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 check. Very easy to do. But yes, having your data everywhere and having it being able to be read offline, that's important.
And I know somebody's going to say, now, Chuck, you told her she's not supposed to give the presentation.
Oh, right.
I'm asking these questions because sometimes, if I know there will be people there that only use an iPhone or maybe only use an iPad. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to know that things like this are available for the platforms that will be represented at Macstock. And this one sounds like it crosses off all the checkboxes.
Well, and even that, it has a web browser. So let's say you are someplace where you can't work. I can't install apps on my work computer because it's hospital. I can log into a website and use my task management software there while I'm still not allowed to install an application. So just even being able to do it in a web browser gives it that extra dimension of not being reliant on software.
So because I think you're going to be talking more practically about how to do things, I'll ask this as sort of an aside for anybody who's saying, yeah, well, but not knowing what you do, what all you keep in there, do you have any concerns with it being in the cloud, with it not being locked away on your device where you can control it?
I mean, there's always that concern, when it first comes to privacy, it comes to whether your data is secure. Would something happen to their databases that, if it's online, could potentially remove your data? But there is a local cache. I can use it offline. If I'm sitting on an airplane, I'm flying to somewhere, I can read my notes and I can look through my things offline. So I know it is there physically on my machine. That makes me feel more comforted that it's not just only a cloud type of software. But yeah, I think that's always a concern with technology. Okay. If they closed? What if they closed tomorrow and your data's there? The nice thing about it is that it is exportable in all sorts of different ways too, where I can create it in a PDF, I can put it in RTX, I can put it in other formats if I needed to offload some of this information.
And I guess I'm approaching this conversation from the standpoint of, okay, somebody else is going to show me a productivity system. What are my usual objections, or where are my rough spots in looking at and evaluating it? And it sounds like you've addressed every single one of them, which is a darn shame, because now I've got to go take a look at Notion. I've used it this much, and what I've played with it on is phenomenal, and especially some of the new AI oriented features. But I probably haven't taken it I know I haven't taken it to the degree that you have.
Well, one of the things that's nice about Notion, and I'm trying not to frighten my friends that are not technical people. They just want to keep notes, right? They just like notes. And so they get frightened if I say the word database, which is an unfortunate term I used at the beginning, because it's more than that. It can just be your notebook. It can be a place like a binder of where all your Word documents are. It can be so much more with that. But you can be an inch deep on Notion and a mile wide. You just have a ton of data and you don't use any of the features. You don't do any of the hard stuff. Or you could go in and do a deeper dive and make this much more sophisticated. It is really up to you, your level of experience. I started out with a podcasting database or a spreadsheet. It was nothing more than a spreadsheet. These are my topics, and this is what status these topics are in. Over the year, I have grown this into something quite sophisticated. So you can keep going and it will grow with you. And that's what I really like about it.
That's the mark of good software, I think, is that you can start to make use of it now. It grows with you. You don't start bumping up against its limits in 3 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that every ounce of time I've spent learning Notion has paid off to me, and that's important to me.
Wow, that's quite a statement. That's quite a statement. All right, so this is another session I'm really looking forward to, because I'm always interested in what I could do better, what tools, and the tools are evolving, and they're evolving rapidly and almost before our eyes. And so if you're not looking at some of these new tools, you can find yourself at a competitive disadvantage.
Right. And that was a little bit of what we talked about and what you talked about last Macstock Conference, is if you get stuck in a position, you won't grow, your system won't grow with you, and you'll get stagnant. This is Macstock, I think, in general, is about how to do everything better. One thing I did like about Notion most of all is if you use OneDrive, like I used to use OneDrive, that product hasn't been updated since 2017. It feels dead. It feels there's nothing new coming. And so while all these advances were happening in other pieces of software, like Notion, like Obsidian, like other pieces of software, nothing was moving forward on OneNote. And you want to get a company that's as excited about its software as Notion is. But I think in Macstock in general, we are all interested in doing better. And that's what I think we all enjoy the most about the conference, is learning from each other about how we can do better and what we can be smarter about. And I'm excited about that too.
The Macstock audience, I don't think we've said this in any other interview, but the Macstock audience is there because they want to be there. And they want to be socializing with their friends, but also they're coming for the conference. It's not one of those conferences that some people go to and it's like, yeah, we're going to Vegas and we never go to any of the sessions. We hang out by the pool. people want to be in these sessions to be learning from the speakers. And I think that is one thing that differentiates Macstock from some other conferences that are out there.
Oh, yeah. And I was new last year. It was the first time I went physically to the conference. And there were podcasters that I have listened to for a decade. And it was amazing to me because they weren't standoffish. As a new person and a new podcaster and just a new person in general, everyone was so friendly and nice. I could ask questions of them. They gave me advice on things. A lot of people gave me advice on podcasting. No one was not interested in talking with you. And I mean, everyone was just open to that. I mean, at the hotel, somehow we got in the conversation of how to do push-ups better. And there I was in the conference at the conference center doing push-ups to show the different kinds of push-ups you can do. I mean, it's fun and exciting and they're good people. And, I think that's the great part about all of this. I even had the person selling snacks in the back of the conference last year come up to me and say, I learned so much from your presentation. And he wanted to ask me some questions. And, that's the atmosphere. We want to help people do better, every one of us. And whether you're famous or not so famous, it's just an open community of people.
Yeah, but somehow I missed the push-up session. I'm sorry I missed that.
It was exciting for sure.
But yeah, and I know the gentleman you're talking about because I know exactly where he was. And watching from both as a presenter, but also watching other presenters, the staff was paying a lot of attention to what was going on because you're right. I don't think they've ever experienced anything quite like Macstock in that regard that would capture their interest. Oh,
I walked away with dozens of things to come home and try. I mean, I just, came home and said, okay, now I got to do I had lists of things that I needed to do after that conference because I learned how to do something better.
Yeah. And now those lists are in Notion.
And all the lists are in Notion. You're absolutely right. That's exactly where I put them.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone that we've talked to, the ones we haven't talked to yet, and just even the people that attend and aren't speaking. You're right. It's such a welcoming crew. There's so much. There's just so much good vibes in the sessions and in the after hour sessions and in the early morning sessions and all the informal hallway tracks as well. That I want people to get there. And folks, you can get there a little bit cheaper, $30 cheaper, because Mike Potter has given all the speakers codes that will take $30 off of your price to attend. Jill, your code is?
Small Steps. My podcast is Small Steps Empire, so Small Steps is my code.
Okay. Just one word, all caps.
One word, all caps. Small.
Okay, so Jill's code is Small Steps. Mine is obviously MacVoices. Use hers, use mine. I don't care. Don't use either one of them. It doesn't matter. Just get there because we're going to have a lot of fun. We want to spread that fun around. It's one of those things where you want other people to experience what you're experiencing because it's so positive. So that's Macstock Conference and Expo, Small Steps, or MacVoices to get $30 off. And, join us. It'll be a blast.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so excited for it.
Jill, anything I should have asked you about the presentation? I was asking the questions that were foremost in my mind. Anything that I should ask you to comment on that you think is an especially interesting part of the conversation?
Well, my hope is, I'm trying, I was thinking about different ways I could do it. I could do a tutorial, how you set up a page and how you set up a this and a that and a view into your page and all this information. I'm trying to make it more of a cookbook. This is how you can see all the things you need to see. This is how you can store your data. You can store it as a page. You can store it as a, Kanban board. You can store it as a calendar. This is more like just showing you the various things you could do because I have confidence that people could probably, once they know you can turn your Notion information into a calendar, there's places online you can look that up and see how to do it. I want to inform people that you can even do this thing. This is good steps, good measures. And I think, my hope is that even if you're not planning on using Notion, that you still walk away with a framework of storing your data so that you can retrieve it later, so you can view it in different ways. And hopefully it'll help everybody, not just the people using Notion, but I think you should use Notion.
And you make a good point. Sometimes it's not as much about how to do it as it is about just, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you decide that that's something that benefits you, you can go and look up exactly how to accomplish it.
Once you know it's possible, yeah, it's easy to find, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jill, thank you. It's a blast as always. I'm really looking forward to your session along with everybody else's and just to seeing the whole crew again together in Crystal Lake. Folks, we want you there. So visit Macstock Conference and Expo.com, small steps or MacVoices to take $35 off. 30? 35. Yeah. 35, I think. 30 or 35. We'll
30.
take something off. 30.
Yeah.
Okay, 30. It's a little punchy at this point. And I don't care which one you use them both. By the way, they will apply to both the 2-day, the actual proper Macstock conference for Saturday and Sunday, or the 3-day package, which includes workshops on Friday. So go, use them, sign up, get there. We're going to have a lot of fun. Oh, and one last thing. Sorry, you can't stack them. So you have to pick one or the other. You can't use both. Jill, I'll see you in a frightening number of days here. It's bearing down on us rapidly.
Frightening, yeah. Well, thank you, Chuck, so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you. It's going to be a great time.
Absolutely. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We will have more on the road to Macstock along with all of our other great MacVoices content. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.